I pay homage to the Supremely Enlightened Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu. I pay homage to my teacher, Lukaswami. Sadhu. So today we are going to first discuss some verses of Arahant monks, the enlightened monks. So you can select any Arahants from here, then we can learn and discuss the verses of that Arahant Bhante. So I have shared the screen. Anybody likes to select today's verses of Arahant monks? You can tell the number.
But then can we study about Venerable Sumana?
What is the number?
5.4 something.
Okay, so 5.4, the verses of Arahant Sumana. Okay, you like to read? Who is going to read? This is the Theravada 5.4, the verses of Arahant Sumana Thero.
I can read, Bhante.
Okay.
The verses of Arahant Sumana. I wish for only one thing in this Dhamma practice. My preceptor helped with that. I desired the freedom from death, Nibbana. I have done the task to achieve that goal. I attained the supreme bliss of Nibbana. I experienced it and went beyond all doubts about it. I announce this to you with purified knowledge and without doubt. I gained the knowledge to understand my past lives. My divine eye is purified. I attained enlightenment. The Buddha's path has been fully followed by me. I learned about the path to Nibbana very well in your teaching. I developed virtue, one pointedness, and wisdom diligently. All taints have been destroyed. Now there is no more rebirth for me. You, my great teacher, taught me the noble path. You were compassionate and very helpful to me, my great teacher. Your instructions were not in vain. Now I am a well-trained pupil. These verses were said by Arahant Sumana.
Sadhu, sadhu. So did you see the faith in the heart of that Arahant Bhante? The respect and faith towards the Buddha who showed him the path to attain Nibbana. And here the preceptor means the one who taught him the Dhamma, the one who ordained him. And that Bhante says here, I desire the freedom from death. Freedom from death. So in order to achieve, like, you understand the danger of this repeated death again and again in this world. You can see how people die, due to so many things, due to natural disasters, accidents, diseases, in the battlefield, killing each other. Due to so many reasons, people die in various ways. So wise people don't want to die again and again. In order to attain the end of death or freedom from death, what should be attained? One should attain the end of rebirth, right? Because that is the only way to attain freedom from death. So the meaning of experiencing the freedom from death means the same as ending rebirth. Because as long as one is reborn, one will die. So there will not be a freedom from death if that being is reborn. So in order to attain end of rebirth, what did that Bhante do? Here Bhante says, I desired the freedom from death, Nibbana. One should attain Nibbana. By following the Noble Eightfold Path. When the Nibbana is achieved, at the same time, that fortunate human being or a heavenly being has achieved the freedom from death, freedom from rebirth at the same time. So Nibbana is the only solution to stop repeated rebirth and repeated death. That is why Bhante says, I have done the task to achieve that goal. What is the task to be done to achieve that goal? The task is to complete the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path, the path leading to the end of suffering. So rebirth is suffering, death is suffering. So when Buddha taught the Noble Eightfold Path as the path leading to the end of suffering, that practice ends all the suffering, including rebirth and death. And when that Arahant Bhante was following the Noble Eightfold Path with that sole intention of achieving the freedom from death, which is Nibbana, that Bhante was able to develop other extraordinary knowledges as well, such as the knowledge to see past lives, to understand the real picture of this samsara, going from life to life, experiencing different feelings in different lives, different forms, sometimes in animal world, sometimes in ghost world, sometimes in heavenly world, sometimes in hell, sometimes in the human world, different lives, experiencing so many different feelings. So Bhante, this Arahant Bhante gained that knowledge to see past lives. And also, he also achieved another knowledge. That's why Bhante says here, my divine eye is purified, Dibba Chakku. When that divine eye is purified, a special knowledge is gained, which is called Chutupapata Jnana. That means achieving the divine eye helps the Bhante to see how beings are reborn in different places, in different worlds, how they experience different feelings according to their karma, and how they pass away according to the karma. That's also a powerful knowledge gained by Arahants. And with all those knowledges, Bhante attained the destruction of taints by realizing the Four Noble Truths. And Bhante developed virtue, which is precepts, sila, one-pointedness means samadhi, and wisdom. So we know the Noble Eightfold Path, it consists of sila, samadhi, panya, virtue, one-pointedness of the mind or concentration, and wisdom. And now Bhante has understood here and now. While he is living in this life, he has realized there is no more rebirth for me. Now, did you see how the answer for the question is gained here? He needed an answer to stop repeated death, suffering in this life. And when he was looking for that answer, Buddha taught him the only way to stop death, repeated suffering in this samsara is to end rebirth. Right? That's what he learned from the Buddha. And in order to stop rebirth, you need to destroy taints. See, here Bhante says all taints have been destroyed. So these taints, asava, there are mainly three types of asavas, three types of taints. Kama asava, taints of sense pleasures. Bhavasava, taints of existence, repeated existence. Taints means like hidden defilements that push beings towards repeated existence, also to be enveloped in sense desires, kamas or bhavasava, and avijja asava is the third one, taints of ignorance. So the root defilements, hidden defilements, defilements of not knowing the reality of life, ignorance, not knowing the Four Noble Truths. So those are the three types of taints. So in order to attain end of rebirth, these three types of taints should be destroyed by following the Noble Eightfold Path, which this Bhante did. And as a result, Bhante realized, I have attained Nibbana, so there is no more rebirth for me. That means there is no more death. See, Bhante started here saying, I desire the freedom from death, and then Bhante achieved what he was looking for. There is no more rebirth for me. That's how they realized when they attained Nibbana. And now he's so grateful to the Buddha. My great teacher taught me the noble path. You were compassionate and very helpful to me. My great teacher, your instructions were not in vain. Now I am well-trained pupil. Successful training is completed, and he's so grateful to the Buddha. Sadhu, sadhu. Beautiful verses of Arahant Sumana, the enlightened monk. Do you have any questions about what that Bhante was explaining and was uttering in his stanzas? Anything you like to ask? And also, if you like to turn on your cameras, you can do so.
Bhante, may I ask a question?
Okay, please.
So Bhante, if somebody enters Nibbana, wherein there's no rebirth, okay, and he's free, there's freedom, okay, going to the path of Buddhahood. So what happens to the consciousness? So there is no existence, there's no ignorance, but if he enters a Nibbana, so what happens to the consciousness? I mean,
yeah. Okay.
Where did he go? Where does he go?
Yeah. Okay. So let's discuss about that. Okay. So first we understand how do we discuss about consciousness? Like where is that? Where, like, why did Buddha explain about consciousness? Which Dhamma part is it included? So the consciousness is one of the 5 groups of clinging, or one of the 5 aggregates, right? So form, that means this physical body, feeling, second one, perception, third one, volition, fourth one, and the consciousness is the 5th one. So when Buddha was explaining the 4 noble truths, where did Buddha include the 5 groups of clinging? Buddha included the 5 groups of clinging in suffering, noble truth of suffering. Sankittena, Panchupadana Khandha, Dukkha. 5 groups of clinging means Panchupadana Khandha. Sankittena Panchupadana Khandha, Dukkha means, in brief, 5 groups of clinging are suffering. And also, when somebody tries to realize the 4 noble truths, he has to first understand the noble truth of suffering. So the easiest way, as Buddha realized, to understand the noble truth of suffering, the first noble truth, is to understand the true nature of these 5 things. Form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. So if the consciousness is a part of the suffering, when we learn that the enlightened monk or the nun has freed from suffering, he has put an end to suffering, what do we know now? He has escaped from 5 groups of clinging. Because 5 groups of clinging are the suffering. And he has escaped from suffering. That's the meaning of attaining Nibbana. Dukkha Nirodha means Nibbana, the end of suffering, cessation of suffering. If the suffering is the 5 group of clinging, what is the meaning of the end of suffering? End of the craving for 5 group of clinging. Because tanha is the dukkha samudaya. Dukkha samudaya means origination of suffering. Cause of suffering is craving. Craving for what? Craving for the 5 group of clinging. Craving for the physical body, form, craving for feelings, craving for perceptions, craving for volition, and craving for consciousness. And if that Bhante has achieved end of suffering, if that Arahant Bhante has put an end to the suffering and eradicated the cause of suffering, that means he has eradicated craving for consciousness. Do you understand that? So there is no more craving for consciousness.
Bhante, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So if say for feeling, contact with a cold object, so I have the contact of a cold object, and then I think, oh, I'm cold. That is the consciousness thinking that it's me that is cold, where it's just the feeling and the contact. Is that
the consciousness?
Right.
The consciousness is the initial cognition of any object.
So what is the part where I think it's me that's cold? What part is that?
It's in the the very first factor of the dependent origination, which is ignorance, avidya.
Okay.
Right? So when an ordinary person starts the process of experiencing anything, experiencing a visual object, experiencing a sound, experiencing a smell, experiencing a taste, experiencing a tangible, experiencing a mental object, that ordinary being starts with ignorance. The whole process starts with ignorance. When ignorance is there, not knowing the Four Noble Truth is there, from the beginning, that being has the notion of self. You understand that? Yeah, so it starts from the very beginning. When the ignorance is abandoned by realizing the Four Noble Truths fully, it affects the consciousness, because now, instead of ignorance supporting each of the following links of the dependent origination, now the true knowledge, vidya, is supporting. When vidya is supporting the seeing process, hearing process, and smelling, tasting, all these process in our life. Now we have to talk about the life of an enlightened being, enlightened monk or the nun. If we talk about true knowledge, experiencing things based on true knowledge, based on vidya. Now, dependent on vidya, dependent on Buddha explains it's like this. Avidya nirodho, with the cessation of ignorance, with the cessation of lack of knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, comes the cessation of sankhara. With the cessation of sankhara, formations, comes the cessation of vijnana, consciousness. Now there is the answer for Harry's question. What happens to the consciousness of the enlightened person? There is the cessation of the consciousness. That means there is no ignorance, there is no craving, there is no clinging, there are no taints, no defilements associated with the consciousness. That is the consciousness of Arahant beings. We call it the cessation of consciousness. It doesn't mean the consciousness disappeared, consciousness went somewhere. That's not the meaning. When we see there is the cessation of consciousness, we know that means the cessation of, dependent on the cessation of ignorance, cessation of formations come. With the cessation of formations, the cessation of consciousness comes. That's how it happens. Avidya nirodho, sankhara nirodha. Sankhara nirodha, vijnana nirodho. Vijnana nirodha, nama rupa nirodho. With the cessation of consciousness, mentality and materiality cease. Nama rupa nirodha, salayatana nirodho. With the cessation of mentality and materiality, 6 sense bases cease. It doesn't mean I disappears. When we learn there comes the cessation of 6 sense bases, it doesn't mean eyes disappear. It doesn't mean ears disappear. It doesn't mean nose disappears. It doesn't mean the tongue disappears, right? It doesn't mean the body disappears. It doesn't mean the mind disappears. The meaning is what disappears there is the ignorance disappears, craving disappears, clinging disappears, defilements disappear, taints disappear. That is the meaning. So there is this enlightened being living, is a living being. He is eating, he is drinking, he is teaching, he is walking. But there is a different way of living. What is the difference? Living a life, seeing things as they really are. What is the meaning of seeing things as they really are? The Arahant sees everything is arising and passing away. Everything is impermanent. Everything is subject to change. Everything is non-self. Seeing that, they see visual objects, understanding that they hear sounds, understanding that they smell things, understanding that reality, they taste things, understanding that reality, they feel things, they touch things, understanding that reality, they think thoughts, understanding the three main characteristics of all the conditioned things. Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta. And in the Samyutta Nikaya, there are suttas about their experience with the world, how they experience, and their Buddha explains very clearly this process of their living. They live basically seeing things as they really are. So when they live seeing things as they really are, there is no reason for them to crave for things. There is no reason for them to get angry at things. There are no reasons to be deluded, to be attached to things. So they are freed from all the negative qualities, from all the defilements, but they are the ones that who see the true nature of this life. So their consciousness is called the cessation of consciousness. It's a different name for that consciousness. And what happens when they pass away? Now, the ordinary being's consciousness is called sasava upadaniya. Ordinary being's consciousness is associated with sasava. Sasava means taints. Their consciousness is associated with taints. Upadani. Their consciousness is always associated with clinging. They have clung to the consciousness. Whatever they cognize from their sense basis, they have clung to those objects. So that their consciousness is in that sphere. But when we talk about the consciousness of an enlightened monk or an enlightened nun, it's different. We discussed about their consciousness. It is freed from all taints and defilements and all the negative qualities. There is just knowing. Their consciousness is doing some work. When they open eyes, they see the world. They see the visual objects. And that is the consciousness that cognizes the objects through their eye also. But that consciousness is fully understood at this point. That consciousness is no longer a magical illusion. That consciousness sees impermanent things as impermanent, impure things as impure, anicca sanyi, asubhe asubha sanyi, impure things as impure, dukkhe dukkha sanyi, painful things as painful, anatte anatta sanyi. That consciousness recognizes things that are non-self as things that are non-self. So seeing the reality. But at the passing away, normally when an ordinary person passes away, when the 5 groups of clinging are broken up in this life, that means we leave our body aside, all the feelings are calmed down in this life, all the perceptions and everything is what we experience, and everything is past when we die, and we start a new life. New life means another new 5 groups of clinging, and the support for that new life is basically the consciousness that has been dependently arisen. So all the karma we accumulated are associated in our past lives, and this life are associated with that consciousness when we are reborn in next life. Okay, but we need to understand it is a dependently arisen consciousness. It is not an alone consciousness. It is associated with the form, feeling, perception, volition. Those four aggregates and the consciousness. Consciousness is the seed, viññāṇaṃ bījaṃ. Craving is the moisture or the water, tanha sineho. And then the form aggregate, feeling aggregate, perception and volition, they are called the land. So now ground. Now we have the ground, we have the seed, we have the water. That's how Buddha explained the new life. So when an ordinary person dies, the consciousness has a big role to play. Behind that new life, there are eyes in that new life, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So the consciousness plays a major role behind those each sense faculty. Now you can see, and then that being starts seeing the world again. It starts. There are 4 generations to be born for a being: egg-born generation, womb-born generation, moisture-born generation, and spontaneous generation. So the being will be reborn including into one of those generations, and then it starts the new life. It starts seeing the world again. If that being has been reborn in the animal world, and now that being is an animal, and that being's friends and all the relatives and everybody animals now, because that being is in the animal realm, eating everything. All these things are now according to that environment. So but there's the karma background. So when that's the path of the ordinary being, or that being has been born in the hell realm, or in the ghost realm, or in the human world again, or in the heavenly world. This is the path of the ordinary being, and that is how the consciousness is associated with all the other 4 aggregates, karma from past lives, and all these things. It's like a new plant, new tree growing again, right? And that being starts accumulating new karma in that life, and this keeps going without stopping. This going, that being experience the results of the past lives karma, and now at the same time accumulating new karma. Do you see how this goes endlessly? Experience past life, the results of past life karma, and accumulating new karma, and then the new karma becomes the old karma when he goes to the next life. And in that life he collects again karma, and that's called new karma. That's called navang karma, new karma. And he experiences the results of past life karma. That's called puranang karma. So this endlessly, this cycle goes on from life to life, from life to life. That's because of that consciousness and the other 5 groups of clinging, the 4 groups of clinging with the consciousness together, 5 groups of clinging. That's the mechanism of an ordinary being, sansaric journey. But when an enlightened monk or a nun passes away, it's a totally different story, because how did Buddha explain the ordinary being's consciousness? What is the name for that? What is the simile? Seed. Remember? Seed. Viññāṇaṃ bījaṃ. What is the moisture? What is the water?
Craving.
Craving is the water. Now think about the the being who is going to pass away, the enlightened person, there is no water, no craving, and the consciousness is no longer functions as a seed, because there is a cessation of consciousness. And how can a consciousness grow in a new life without the support of water? Consciousness is the seed. There is no moisture, no water, and the consciousness has achieved cessation, nirodha, khinam puranam, navang natti sambhava, viratta citta ayatike bhavasmin. Te khina bija, the seed has been destroyed. Nibbanti dhira, yathayam padipo, the enlightened beings attain final nibbana, the extinguishment, like this lamp has faded out now, like this lamp has extinguished now. And when the flame is extinguished, can you ask the question, where did the flame go? Did the flame go to the south, to the north, to the east, to the west? Irrelevant question, right? With the ending, with the cessation of supporting factors for the flame has stopped. Same thing with the, now you understand with that simile of seed, water, that with that explanation, you clearly understand the difference between ordinary person's consciousness and the enlightened person's consciousness.
Yes, Bhante.
It's very subtle, it's very deep, but it's a very powerful explanation by the Buddha.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Good. That's how Buddha realized about the depth of this life. All the causes and conditions lead to rebirth, and how this attainment of Nibbana helps beings to achieve the cessation of all the causes and conditions leading to rebirth. Okay, so next, how about reading a verse of Arahant Nan, Therigata. Who is going to select today's verses of Arahant Nans?
Bhante, may I select Arahang Nan Sujata?
Sujata, you remember the number?
I didn't see the number.
Oh, here. This one.
6.4, yes.
6.4, okay. Can you also read? Aina?
Yes, Bhante.
Okay, you can start reading.
Yes. The verses of Arahang Nan Sujata. One day, I was well dressed and decorated with jewelry. I was wearing flower garlands. My body was smeared with sandalwood cream. I was surrounded by my female attendants. Taking an abundance of food, drinks, sweets, and snacks, I went to the park to have fun. Having enjoyed playing there, on my way home, I visited the Anjana Forest Monastery in Sujātā. There, I saw the Supreme Buddha shining like the brightest lamp that illuminates all three worlds. I approached the great teacher and worshiped him. Out of compassion for me, the Supreme Buddha, the one with eyes of Dharma, taught me the excellent teaching. The Buddha is a great seer. Having heard the Supreme Dharma, I realized the Four Noble Truths. Sitting on that very seat, I attained the last free state, Nibbana. Thus, knowing the true Dharma, I became a nun. I attained the triple knowledge. The Supreme Buddha's training is never in vain. These verses were said by Arahang Nun Sujata.
Sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Very juicy, really. Okay. What is her name? Sujata. Wasn't she very fortunate to go to that, park and then with the friends, She was from a very rich family because she has attendants also to take care of her, and she didn't know about I think that she didn't know the Dhamma before, and she went to have fun to that park, right? And on her way, she went to this monastery. That's why we need monasteries, everywhere. And fortunately, the Buddha was there in that monastery that day, and she sat there to listen to the Dhamma with her friends and attendants. She was curious to know the Buddha's teachings. Can you believe, sitting on that very seat, she realized the Four Noble Truths. So definitely she must have practiced this path in her previous lives. She even didn't know that, but her mind was matured enough to realize the deep Dhamma, the Four Noble Truths taught by the Buddha, and she attained Nibbana there. And she never went home. She became a nun. Few minutes ago, she was having fun with her friends in the park. And now she is an Arahant nun.
Bhante, there was a sentence that says that I saw Buddha shining like the brightest lamp that illuminates all three worlds. Referring to which three worlds?
Okay, so the three worlds means Kamaloka, all the worlds in the sense realm, all the worlds in the sense realm, all the heavenly worlds, human worlds, and all the other lower worlds, they are included in the Kamaloka. And the second loka is the Rupa Loka. The beings who develop the material jhanas are reborn in the form Brahma worlds. That is the second world. The third world is called Arupa world. The beings who develop immaterial jhanas are born in that immaterial Brahma world. That is the third world. So Rupa, Kamaloka, Rupaloka, and Arupaloka. So Buddha is like the brightest lamp that illuminates all three worlds with the light of wisdom. That's the meaning. So when Buddha shares this amazing knowledge, understanding about life, the truth of life, the beings in those worlds, their lives are in thick darkness, even though they are in heavens, even though they are in Brahma worlds, their lives are illuminated with the light of wisdom of the Buddha, and they're going to see the truth of life and come out of that thick darkness of ignorance. That's how Buddha illuminates all the three worlds. By seeing the truth of life with the light of wisdom, they are going to escape from all suffering, the beings in all these three worlds. Okay. Rob, you have a question?
Yeah, just this after that, he makes mention of the one with eyes of Dhamma. Just maybe about the eyes of Dhamma.
Yeah, so that's a kind of a synonym for the Buddha.
Okay.
Yeah, the one with eyes of Dhamma.
The one who embodies the Dhamma.
Yeah. So Buddha sees everything as they really are in this world. So
okay, thank
you.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to understand the last part paragraph mentioned that I attained the triple knowledge. The triple knowledge, does it mean Sila, Samadhi, Panya?
Okay, let's see here. We have a note.
Oh.
Can you please read the note?
Oh, the triple knowledges are part of the Supreme Buddha's and many Arahants' enlightenment. They are knowledge of previous life, knowledge of the passing away, and rebirth of living beings according to their karma, and knowledge of the discussion of the ten. In Pali, Pube Niwasanusatinana, Jutu Papatananya, Sawakayananya.
Good. Oh. So that's the meaning of the triple knowledge. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
thank you, Bante.
Good. That Arahant attain the triple knowledge. So only some Arahants have the triple knowledge. But some Arahants don't have the first two knowledges, but still they have the third one, the destruction of all the taints. So with that attainment, they attain Nibbana. But they don't have the knowledge to see past lives. They don't have the knowledge to see rebirth and passing away of beings. But they have attained end of suffering by attaining the third knowledge. That's also important to understand.
Bhante?
Yes.
Would Buddha also be able to see what she needed for Dhamma and be able to teach her that? So
exactly,
that
yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah, that's another special knowledge that only the Buddha has. That's called Indriya Paro Pariyatta Jnana, and that is the exact thing that we are going to learn today. That's the sutta I have selected today for the discussion. So that's the Indriya Paro Pariyatta Jnana, scanning through the spiritual faculties of beings. So when they come to the Buddha, Buddha can see the entire inner life of that being, like what kind of path he or she practiced near the previous Buddhas or in past lives, and the degree of the maturity of spiritual faculties, what kind of teaching I should teach today so that this individual understands the depth of it quickly, and the capability of attaining the stages of enlightenment. Will this individual attain the first stage of enlightenment today, or second stage of enlightenment, third stage of enlightenment, or the last stage of enlightenment? And Buddha knows everything when that person sits in front of the Buddha, and accordingly Buddha would start teaching the Dhamma. That's why Buddha is called the Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarathi, the best person in this world to tame others, understanding the entire life of that being. Buddha knows what to teach, how to guide, the best trainer of persons to be trained. Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarathi.